Call of Duty just completely changed how sniping works in Black Ops 6, which means some of the things you've been doing and using could actually be wrong. So in today's video, I'm going to give you the new best tips, updated settings, and the must-use attachments so you can snipe like this. First things first, let's just talk about what the hell just happened to the snipers. Before this massive weapon overhaul update that Treyarch just put out, sniping at its core was off-centered. Because of the constant idle sway, by the time you scoped in, your aim would be slightly off alignment. It would be off-center. Now, there was one fix for this, and that was the target laser attachment. That essentially delayed the idle sway from kicking in for about 2 seconds. So as you scope in, your gun will be perfectly centered. And that was an attachment I gassed up at the start of the game, saying it was the best attachment on the snipers by far. But now, I'm afraid to say, that is no longer the case. The recent weapon update for Black Ops 6 essentially made what the target laser used to do the new norm. Every sniper in the game, and every gun in the game to be fair, has now got 2.2 seconds of idle sway delay, which means it takes over 2 seconds for the idle sway to kick in, so your sniper is now perfectly still and centered every time you scope in. I mean, it should have been like this at the start of the game, but we'll take it. So this means that the target laser is now essentially useless. So what should you now use instead? The Strelok laser. What the Strelok laser does is that it tightens your crosshairs as you're scoping in with a sniper, making your shot more accurate the closer you are to fully scoping in. Does that make sense? You can essentially now shoot your sniper before you fully scoped in, and that bullet will go almost perfectly straight. And I've put some examples on screen of how beneficial it is when you're in different engagements, especially those closer range ones where you just don't have time to fully scope in. It will tighten those crosshairs, making like half scoping and quick scoping more accurate. For the rest of the must-use attachments on the snipers, you've got the rapid fire, which is going to increase that fire rate. We're also going with the quick draw grip. They did tweak the flinch in a recent update a couple of weeks ago, but it's still pretty damn bad on the snipers. So the heavy stock is still a must. And for me, the extended mag 1 gives you 2 extra bullets in the mag. It doesn't hurt your aim down sight time, and I think that is vital when you're playing 6v6 or even 10v10. And because the LR762 is a pretty stable sniper across the board, you can get away with just those 5 attachments. Whereas with the LW3, that sniper needs a little bit of extra help. I would go with the Ranger pad for the stock. For the barrel, probably the reinforced. There's something about that reinforced barrel that allows me to hit more collaterals. I know it's probably a placebo and it shouldn't help with that bullet penetration, but I feel like it does. For the muzzle, it's between the compensator or the muzzle brake. For me, the compensator is the go-to. It's the attachment that reduces that gun kick by the most and has the best vertical recoil control. So the gunfire wildcard to me is essential on the LW3. But one thing to note, even after this weapon overhaul update that reduced a lot of visual recoil, weapon sway and bob, the LW3 is still a bit of a weird sniper to use. The scope wobble you have when you go in for a second shot and your bolt animation isn't finished is actually madness. And there's still no attachment that counters it. The best advice I have for using this gun is to leave your scope after every shot and don't scope back in until that bolt animation has completed. Obviously, you can't do that every time, but it just stops you from having that visual scope wobble that really throws off your shot because you actually don't know where to shoot. Do you follow those crosshairs or do you go for the middle of the screen? But with the LR762, you really don't have that problem. It's just a stable, consistent sniper across the board, and that's why I still feel like it's the best sniper in the game. So another massive change that happened with Season 1 Reloaded, and you may not have even noticed, is that the controller sensitivity values have completely changed. Before this update, your controller sensitivity values went from 1 to 20, but now it goes from 0.1 all the way up to 4. Now, Call of Duty did share like a conversion chart of what the old value represented with the new values, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's right, and a lot of other people felt the same. Now, I have had to play around with this. I started at 2.6. That felt too slow, so I ended up going to 2.8. That felt a little too quick. So I've settled now for my horizontal horizontal and vertical stick sensitivities both set to 2.7. That to me is the sweet spot for sniping. And for this game specifically, with Black Ops 6, with all its omni movement and all the sliding and diving, you want those values as high as you possibly can get them, where it still feels comfortable. But for those struggling to get these values higher, something that I did on previous games was keep that sensitivity lower, but then I would go into my aiming advanced settings, I would go to my custom sensitivity per zoom, and I would change the high zoom to be a higher value, which essentially means that when you're down in your scope with a sniper, your sensitivity is now much faster, allowing you to get those quick snappy shots, those drag scopes that are vital on this game, without putting yourself at a disadvantage when you're out of your scope. And if you do change this value, you want your ADS sensitivity transition timing to be after zoom. This stops any interference between your out of scope regular sensitivity and your high zoom sensitivity. But because I personally have this set to 1, my sensitivity transition timing is set to instant. And that is just down to the fact that I've got my low zoom values at 0.85. So when I use regular guns, my sensitivity slows right down, which gives me a lot more control, even if I'm just tapping that ADS button. And while we're on this page, aim response curve type set to dynamic, and I've got my aim response curve slope scale set to 0.8. And that has served me well so far. But for the rest of my controller settings, I do play tactical button layout, and if you want to play tactical flipped, you just have to turn this, set it on down here. For my dead zone values, I've got my left stick min and right stick min set to 5, and then left stick max and right stick max at 99. So since my last tips video, I've actually changed a few of these settings in the movement category. First off, I play with sprint assist on rather than tactical sprint assist. In a nutshell, the tactical sprint assist option was making me full sprint every time I just tap to go forward, and that's not what you want with a sniper. So we've got sprint assist on, and if you go down to movement advanced settings, I have paired that with single tap run. I've also set my slide dive behavior now to hybrid. Up until probably a week ago, I was using tap to slide, and it works, but I felt like I couldn't drop shot because when I held in my analog stick to basically go prone, because I was slightly moving, the game thought I was trying to dive, so I just dive on the spot, which got me killed quite a few times. So hybrid, it's quite weird and awkward to get used to, but once you do, I truly feel like this is the best option to go for. And the rest of these settings shouldn't make any difference at all. One question I always get asked though is if I hold my breath when I'm quick scoping with a sniper. And to be honest with you, I've been doing this so many years, I actually don't know. It's got to be muscle memory at this point whether I do or don't. But what I can say is that with these changes to the game now, where there's actually no sway for the first 2.2 seconds if you aiming down your sights, holding your breath is going to make no difference whatsoever because your gun is perfectly still for a couple of seconds and then it'll start to sway. So as long as you've done the work and you're out your scope in the first 2 seconds, there's no need to hold your breath anymore, which to be fair is a pretty cool feature. But now we have a stable centering mechanic within Black Ops 6. There's a few things in the interface settings you need to have on. So head over to your gameplay HUD and you want to go down to crosshair. Most of you will have that on, so we're going to click show more. So you want to enable that crosshair dot if you haven't already. This is going to be more important than ever because that center dot is in the middle of your crosshairs, which is now, after the update, where your sniper is going to be perfectly scoped into and aligned to. So having that crosshair dot on, even if it's just the default scale size, will allow you to memorize the middle of your screen, and that is essentially where that sniper bullet is going to go the majority of the time. Now for those who are going to use the Strelok laser, you need to have your crosshair spread on. That just gives you a visual cue of your crosshairs tightening. I actually used to have this turned off when I used the target laser because I felt when they used to expand and shrink, it was just unnecessary clutter on the screen. But now it's just helpful to have across the board. And if you weren't aware, it can now actually change your crosshair color, which I've seen a lot of people have success from. I personally haven't tried it, but if you want a green or a blue or a purple crosshair, you can actually do that now. That's pretty cool. Let's now run through some more settings that I think are pretty crucial to be aware of. In terms of my field of view, I've settled on 110. I've got my ADS field of view set to affected. Weapon field of view is wide. That is a must. Gives you more clarity with what's going on in game. That's the same with world and weapon motion blur. Turn those off. Get your camera movement to the least it can be. And I've actually been using inverted flashbang. Am I alone in that one, or do you guys rock it too? Moving over to my audio settings, I'll keep this one quick. Got that gameplay music volume turned off. As much as I want to hear it, it. It's just a bit overpowering sometimes, right? We've got the dialogue volume set to 40. That's like the announcer in game. And then the effects volume, I have that set to 100. And then down at the global settings, my audio mix is set to headphones. That combination right there seems to allow me to hear a lot of footsteps in this game. So I know it's going to be personal preference, but that's what works for me. But I think that just about covers it with all things new in regards to Black Ops 6 sniping, all the things that have changed, and those updated settings that a lot of you guys have been requesting. So if this helped you in any way, I'd appreciate some love on this video. Drop a like. And if you think there's anything I've missed, drop me a comment with a question and I'll try and get back to you. Or you can check out my original How to Snipe video, which covers the tips and tricks of sniping on Black Ops 6 in a bit more detail. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.